Brothers and sisters, welcome to Few Minutes of Catholic Doctrine. Today, our focus is based on a question someone asked about extraordinary ministers to the sacraments. In one of the lectures, we talked about sacraments. And as we know in the Catholic Church, there are 7 sacraments. And what is a sacrament? The Catechism of the Catholic Church defines a sacrament as an outward sign of an inner grace, which is instituted by Christ Himself and given to the Church. These 7 sacraments, each of these sacraments, they have what we call the minister of the sacrament and the extraordinary minister of the sacrament. What do I mean? The minister of every sacrament is the person by whom the Church has given authority, the right to celebrate that sacrament. For example, the minister of the sacrament of baptism is the bishop, the priest, and the deacon. These are the ministers of the sacrament of baptism. Now, when it comes to extraordinary ministers of the sacrament of baptism, we talk of people who are allowed to baptize due to some circumstances. For example, the Catechism of the Catholic Church stipulates that in danger of death, anyone can baptize. In danger of death, anyone can baptize. Now, in danger of death, the person who is to receive baptism is being baptized by someone who is not a priest, who is not a deacon, who is not a bishop. That person carrying out the baptism is called an extraordinary minister of the sacrament of baptism, because the circumstances at that moment calls him or her to celebrate that baptism. Now, what is required of this person who is giving baptism to the other person in danger of death? It is required that this person should know and understand that in the Catholic Church, baptism is done in the Trinitarian formula. I baptize you, Paul, Peter, Mary, I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Once this person knows that this is how baptism is done in the Catholic Church, this person can baptize you in danger of death. And what is required is that immediately this is done, it is supposed to be reported to the nearest parish that this is what has happened, so that if eventually this person who has received this baptism survives, he or she will then be received into the church by being anointed with the oil of catechumen, by being anointed with the oil of chrism. Because the person who carries out this baptism cannot anoint you with the oil of catechumen, cannot anoint you with the oil of chrism. So, if you receive baptism from an extraordinary minister, you will then only be received into the Catholic Church. Baptism is one of the sacraments where we receive only once in the Catholic Church, because baptism leaves in you a mark of ownership to say you have been claimed by Christ. You now belong to Christ. And that mark remains in you forever. And that's why the Catholic Church, in other denominations where baptism is recognized by the Catholic Church, you do not receive baptism again. You are only being received into the church by being anointed with the holy oils. It is the same with the extraordinary minister of the sacrament of the Eucharist. The reason why I am talking about extraordinary ministers of the sacrament is because someone asked the question, why is it that I find sometimes lay people, Christians, who come to help the priest to distribute communion? This is because these are people who have been trained. They are called acolytes, extraordinary ministers of the Eucharist. They have been given the powers by the church to distribute communion to the Christians and to take communion to the sick and the elderly who are at home. This is the work of the extraordinary ministers of the Eucharist. So, my dear brothers and sisters, when you see Christians carrying the Blessed Sacrament, Holy Communion to the sick, do not start wondering and asking yourself, why are they the ones carrying? They have been trained and they know fully well their responsibilities, what they are doing. So the reason why I am talking about this is so that when you see that happening in the church, do not get confused. They are people who have been trained and they understand fully what they are doing. So my dear brothers and sisters, these are called extraordinary ministers of the sacrament. It is the same with the extraordinary minister of the sacrament of confirmation. The minister of the sacrament of confirmation is the bishop. And the extraordinary minister of the sacrament of confirmation is the priest. In most situations, the priest who is giving or carrying out the rite of Christian initiation for adults, which is called RCIA, Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults. There are 3 sacraments. Traditionally, these 3 sacraments are to be received in one celebration. And these 3 sacraments are called sacraments of Christian initiation, because these 3 sacraments, they welcome you into Christianity: baptism, confirmation, and the Eucharist. In case where it's the bishop celebrating, normally, traditionally, these 3 sacraments are to be celebrated in one celebration. And if it is the priest, the bishop gives the priest the authority, the powers to baptize, to give you confirmation, and to give you Holy Communion. The priest becomes the extraordinary minister of confirmation. So, my dear brothers and sisters, when we see all of these happening, let us not be confused. Let us look again at each of these sacraments and understand them detailedly and know who is the minister of this sacrament, who is the extraordinary minister of this sacrament. So I believe and I hope you learned something. May God bless you.